my name is Caitlin, and I am so excited to be sharing my very first YouTube yearly bullet journal setup for 2022. I'm going to be using an Archer and Olive A5 journal. I got it on sale at the end of the year. I'm really excited to use their products and see how the paper takes. Everyone raves about the no bleeding and no ghosting, so I'm interested to see what happens with different types of materials. I'm going to be using a lot of Pigma microns in this setup. They're by far one of my favorite velvet liner pens. I've been using them for, I would say, at least 6-7 years. I used them first in graphic design, and now I use them in architecture constantly. So I'm starting with a really simple reaching hands line drawing. I'm going for a very minimalistic setup this year. And my word of the year is devotion, which is the love, loyalty, or enthusiasm for a person, activity, or cause. I am devoting a lot of my time this year to love, my friends and family, being loyal and true to myself, and enthusiastic about the future for graduate degree that I'm going to be applying for in school and an international architectural design competition. I'm going to be continuing to use the color red throughout my entire setup this year. Red is actually my favorite color. That's probably why I was so drawn to the crane and the red velvet cover of this Archer and Olive journal. And it just gives a nice pop by putting one letter in the front of each word in red, and then kind of going with this bold yet thin type of font for a lot of my main words. And you're going to see that as I continue to set up throughout the entire beginning of the bullet journal. Now I'm going in with a little bit of charcoal, and I really want to challenge myself in shading and shadows. I actually haven't used charcoal in probably 3-4 years, so I really just wanted to kind of have fun with this material and just start experimenting again with my more graphic and artistic side that I haven't really had a lot of opportunities to do in about a year since I graduated from college from the University of Florida. And now for my next spread, I am doing my key and 10 things that happened in 2021. I actually updated my key compared to last year, more because I needed a few more symbols. Like I needed something specific for deadlines and events and appointments. I wanted to be able to distinguish them instead of constantly using the symbol important, while I remember that certain tasks have a deadline that I have to meet. Especially since I'm going to be starting grad school applications, this is going to be really critical. I am really excited to go back to school, but at the same time, I am not excited to go back to school, like all people who would be like me, who have been out of school now for 2 years, but I am finally ready to continue in my education and further my career in architecture. I became passionate about architecture when I was 13 years old, and I went to visit my aunt in Munich, Germany, and I got to see the Glockenspiel clock. And it was a really memorable and incredible trip and experience for me that had a really long-lasting effect well into my teens, and then what would become my late teens, early 20s, going into college. And now I'm just giving the page a little accent with this one line drawing of a coffee cup. I don't know about you guys, but I am obsessed with coffee and Starbucks. Like, caffeine is my blood type. Without it, I would never be able to get through my day. And I'm sure that is so bad on so many levels. I've actually been trying to work on my caffeine intake drastically this year, but to no avail. I still have to have a hot cup of coffee in the mornings every day. 10 things in 2021 spread. I like to do a mix of kind of like personal and pop culture things that happened in the year. For example, I bought my first car this year. That was such a big step in adulting, and I am so proud of myself. And it's also the first year where all the bills are mine and I'm completely financially responsible on my own. And to me, that is such a huge accomplishment, especially at the age of 24. And another big thing that happened in pop culture this year is Adele debuting her album 30. I am a huge Adele fan. I have been an Adele fan since the album 19 came out when I was in late middle school. And I love Adele and her vocals and just her overall rawness and emotion and just being able to be 100% genuinely herself and be brave enough to share that with us. She always shares some of the bravest stories in her music, and music is something I'm actually extremely passionate about, and it's almost in a way music was my first career that I ever had. I did a lot of music competitions and recitals, and I actually play 4 instruments. I play the violin, piano, and cello, but I've also have improv on guitar and bass. But my main instrument is the violin. And I just noticed that I spelled happened wrong. That's a little embarrassing, but we're all human here. We all make mistakes. I'll go back and fix it later. And now we get into the nitty-gritty of 2022, the saying goodbye of 2021 with the things that happened. And now we are in the opening spread for starting in journal. I wanted to do something really simple as the opening spread. I really wanted the white space to have an impact on the spread. So I just spread across hello 2022, I'm ready for you, with 2022 in what's going to become more of a bold type of lettering. And this is probably the first year I actually feel 100% confident going into. And in the times we're living in now with COVID and the pandemic, especially since I was in my last year of college in March 2020, COVID really has given me the opportunity to rethink a lot about my priorities and just life and what I really want out of life. And I do think it's awful and horrible that it took something this tragic to honestly enlighten us all to how important life is and the people we have in our lives and prioritize ourselves. We have, the great employer resignation going on, and we're seeing so many financial shifts and changes in the United States right now that it's something that I know it will change. It's a historic event that's going to change the country forever. But most importantly, I think it's going to change who we are, and it's really impacting the future generation like myself drastically. And in some ways, I think for the better, and maybe some ways for the worst. I think it all depends on who you ask. And for the line drawings on this opening spread page, I chose to go with a simple single line drawing of a woman's face and then a 2-line drawing of two people with one kissing the forehead of the other. I really chose these based off of my word of the year, devotion. Just that idea of being devoted to family and love for both each other and ourselves. I think that's what a lot of people have had on their minds since 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic, but also just thinking about more of the devotion to the life that I know I want to build for myself and continue to work towards and build every day. And now we get into what most people dread in the bullet journaling setup, which is the yearly calendar and future log. Last year, I bought some calendar stamps, which have made my life so much easier when setting up these types of spreads, or even when I want to stamp them into my weeklies and highlight the week that I'm on in the year. I highly recommend anyone buy them. You can usually pick them up really cheap. I got mine off of AliExpress. And now, because I don't have memorized how many days are in each month of the year, I am using my Day Designer planner. I use my planner mostly for the constant tasks that I want to get done within that day, while in my bullet journal, I use more what are the monthly and weekly tasks that are usually spread over a longer period of time. And I've decided to add another color in here to kind of just give a bit more of that accent to the white and black and red. So I'm going for this more kind of brighter yellow color. And now on the right, we are setting up my future log. In my last bullet journal, I didn't really use the future log a ton. I think it was more just because I didn't really have as many things going on at once at the time, because after I graduated in May 2020, I was 6 months unemployed and was applying to 10, 15 jobs a week, and also just spending that much needed time with family after I graduated. But I have a feeling this year is going to be the year that we're going to use a future log for advanced deadlines and dates between grad applications and the international competition I'm registered for. I think I'm probably going to need it this year, but I'm going to limit it to 1 page because I still don't think I'm going to be 100% using it as much as maybe some other people do. And now going in for this spread, we've got the 10 goals of 2022 and starting my quarter check-ins. I'm kind of weird about how I do my quarter check-ins. I do your typical quarters for the first 3 quarters of the year, but then in my last quarter, I usually wrap it up in my yearly conclusion, because that's when I really kind of evaluate my goals and what I have and have not accomplished and how I'm progressing in those goals. And I really start to chart out a plan for the last 3 months to try and achieve those goals. Because we all know sometimes you don't meet those goals, even though you try. And at the end of the day, you tried. And that's the best part of the effort in making goals and setting yourself to that standard and priority. So my goals this year, I'm actually in the process of finishing up a friend of mine's dedication. In fact, so the music that you're listening to within this video, I actually wrote it, and I've been dedicating it to his life. He unfortunately passed away way too soon, and it was from very unfortunate circumstances. So that was in late 2019, and I'm still in the process of writing the dedication music, but it's been a labor of love and a labor of recognition for his life and the good qualities about who he was as a person. And I also have some goals of trying to make new friends. I moved from Virginia to Florida, getting a job at an architecture firm. And I love what I do, I really do. But at the end of the day, work is work. I really have been trying to make friends, but no one really tells you how hard it is to make friends when you're out of college. I think that's the hardest lesson for everyone. It's just finding that strength to get out there. And of course, the pandemic doesn't help either. You know, most people are not out and about as they usually are, and you don't see as big of crowds in places as you usually do. So making friends has been kind of hard. So that's kind of my goal. I really want to work on making some friends. I think I'm a good person. I think I'm funny. I think I'm good to be around. But, you know, just like everyone else, you know, I'm sure I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay. I don't need to be. I wouldn't want to be. Going into this spread, I am wrapping up with the quarters and putting in my yearly conclusion, along with my final quarter of the year that usually goes under my yearly conclusion. I usually like to write a summary of the year. Sometimes it's a list of pros and cons, sometimes I do Venn diagrams. It kind of all depends on my mood and how the year went. Sometimes we all know those struggles, like we always have some bad years, but there's always great years, and those are the ones that I really like to focus on. On the next page, I have a section for the brain dump. I actually used that page more often than I had anticipated. I think it's really good to have a space in your journal to kind of say some of the deepest things within your mind, and whether they're positive, whether they're negative, just a space for you to express yourself in writing in that way. And it almost holds a moment in time. And especially during the bad times, it's just a moment, you know, it's going to pass. And I really love to find ways to really kind of allow my brain to be silenced and paused and have an opportunity to reflect on a situation. Now it's the mega of schedules, the mega spread. It is the cleaning schedule. I don't know about you guys, but I have a habit of really wanting to keep things tidy. I'm extremely OCD in that way. I have an issue when dishes are piled up. I have an issue when I just see laundry cascaded everywhere. And I'm really keen and very adamant about hygiene and just your overall lifestyle and the way you live. So sometimes I forget to do things when I'm cleaning, and I also noticed in my last bullet journal, sometimes stuff that I would use as space for just cleaning tasks, and I really wanted to have a place to track it throughout the whole year, and also as a way of like reminding myself, like, oh, I didn't do this last week, I need to do it this week, or oh, maybe I didn't do this last month, I need to do it this month. So I felt a cleaning schedule would really help me out with that a bit. So I broke up a lot of my cleaning tasks in weekly, monthlies, and dailies. For example, some weekly stuff that gets dumped in there is like disinfecting like sinks and countertops, cleaning the microwave, and mopping and vacuuming. while more monthly stuff is my laundry, organizing and cleaning out my closets. I actually clean out like my closets constantly. I even go through my clothes constantly. I'm a very minimalist person. I used to not be like that. I used to have a wardrobe full of clothes, and a lot of them like I wouldn't even wear after like 2-3 wears. So once 2020 hit and I just started not really going out as much because of the pandemic, I made the decision to minimize my wardrobe as much as humanly possible and donate it to someone who actually needs those clothes. So that's definitely something I'm very adamant about, like never using more than what you need. But besides things like that in your dailies, like just overall tidying up my apartment, I am awful sometimes about making sure to pick up all the trash or even taking out the trash, which is really sad because we have valet trash at my apartment complex. And I come back from the gym, and by the time I come back from the gym, they've either gone through my building already, or I see them walking around and they're about to pass my door, and I'm like, wait. And I pull out the trash bag with the trash can, and they're like, oh, we got it, it's okay. And I'm like, oh, thank God. I really need to take it out. But just overall stuff like that, and just trying to set those reminders for myself, it's really important to me, and I really want to work on just keeping a much tidier place and being able to finally maybe decorate my apartment, because I actually have been living here since March and I don't really own much. I like not owning much, but at the same time I really need some homey touches. So that's one of the goals, the mini goals in the back of my mind this year. Maybe, hang a picture on the wall. Make it look like somebody lives here. Now, for this spread, it's a part of one of my goals. It's a financial goal. I really want to save money towards grad school. And as currently an intern architect, sometimes it feels like my money disappears before the blink of an eye. But I know that there's some cuts that I can make and some budgeting that I can do. So I've decided to take on the 100 envelope challenge. For those of you that don't know what the 100 envelope challenge is, sometimes physically how people will do it is they will write an amount of money in increments on envelopes, usually in multiples of 1, 2, and 3. However, I have seen people go as high as 5, and I wish I wish to have that much money laying around. But this year I'm doing increments of 2. Because that adds up to, once you add up all the 100 envelopes together, that is $10,000. And you number them like 2, 4, 6, 8, etc., so on until you get to the 100th envelope, which is 202. And what's awesome about the 100 envelope challenge is that you don't have to go in order. So if you have more money laying around than you usually do, maybe you could do one of the higher number envelopes. You can do, the 100 or 200. But if you're really tight on money that month, you can do, the lower single digits or the low double digits. So I'm really interested to see if this is going to work for me. I would love to see it work for me. I'm really going to try because saving money, I will do anything to save some money. When you're first starting out in the industry for architecture, and just really anyone's first starting out in their life in general in their mid 20s, it sometimes feels like an impossible process to save money. But I'm really going to give it a go this year, and I'm not going to do like the envelopes physically. I'm actually just going to keep track of it using this spread, and I'm going to move that money over into my savings account. And that's just gonna, I think that's gonna be a lot easier for me to keep track. And I have a feeling if I'm awful about papers, if I set a paper down on my desk, Lord knows I might find it next year if I'm lucky. So I don't think it's probably the same thing would happen if I did a bunch of envelopes, or I would mistake it for trash, like in my tiredness of working the 10, 11-hour shifts that I do in the office. So it's just a safer and more secure way to just use my bank accounts and savings accounts. This is now the last spread in the yearly setup. This is the first year I've decided to do a vision board. I will probably be posting the vision board on my Instagram at some point within the next month or so. I'm gonna print some pictures, and a lot of people use vision boards for different things. Some people do it to idealize their life or even like envision their goals. And this is my first time attempting to do something like this. And I actually do a lot of collaging in my personal journal. And if that'd be something you might be interested in seeing, I'm more than willing to try to do a video on that. My problem is my collaging is very chaotic because it takes me a minute to figure out what images I'm going to use, or even like if I'm going to do writing, and just how an overall composition on the page is going to come together. But this year I'm going to use it not only to kind of visualize my life that I want for this year, but also to kind of highlight more of my goals and just, manifesting the life that I'm attaining for this year. We are in the final stretch. Because I am setting up my journal so late a little bit, I have already been using a lot of my initial setup spreads, but January, because I was out sick for 2 weeks with COVID, yes, I ended up getting COVID in season 3, and that was not fun. I was out for a solid like 7 days at the very beginning of the year and isolated for 5 and everything. So Setting things up and even starting to film and get this off the ground was a bit rough and not according to plan. So I decided to make January a bit more a part of the yearly setup spread, even continuing in with the theme of these block type letters and the frames. Just something really simple. That way I could immediately start using my January spreads and also just have a moment to reflect on how I'm doing so far in both my goals, career, lifestyle, and just overall ideas and hopes and dreams. And at the bottom, I've put a little monthly rundown, and that's probably where I'm going to sum up the month and like things that have happened and how it's going, and just kind of a place for my thoughts for the month of January. And on the right page, I just have in a box somewhat in the center of the page. Again, I can't center anything. I don't know what it is about me. It's kind of sad. I literally went to architecture school. You would think I could center something, but no, I'm awful at centering things. But it's just the bigger picture for my goals, lifestyle, career, and adventures. And I'm going to probably be writing a couple sentences under each one and what they attain to, and what I'm also looking forward to as the year is going to unravel and go on. And for the grand finale, I'm actually not going to do something super typical because I'm setting this up so late. I'm not going to do your typical weekly spreads. I'm going to use quotes in the center and do writings of the week around it, or even some planning for future grad applications, and kind of starting to email people and be like, hey, I'm aware that your 2022 applications are closed, but I'm interested in your fall 2023. When do you guys usually open the applications? When do they usually close? So maybe stuff like that, or maybe just some daily tasks that might end up falling into the journal. So for this page, I didn't get everything done either. And it made me laugh at the time because at the end of the quote, it said Rome as the person who said it. You know, the typical phrase, Rome wasn't built in a day. And I just figured it would be a nice, friendly reminder for myself that, hey, it's okay if you don't get everything done. There's always another day, there's always another week, and there's always another month. And we've made it. If you've made it to the end of this video, I applaud you. I am grateful for you, and I really appreciate it. And this is my final flip through. I ended up fixing the happened off camera, but I'm really happy with how these pages turned out, and I'm really excited to use them. And I know it's going to be a very fun and interesting year. It's going to be a year full of opportunity and just looking forward to the future. And I'm really happy that I got to commemorate that in these spreads, and just the anticipation is killing me. I'm so excited to see what's going to happen this year, especially since last year was such an eventful year between moving out of my hometown in Virginia and starting a new job and moving back to Florida after graduating from the University of Florida. It's been one wild ride, and I'm just really excited to see what's in store. But thank you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one.